Hello, I'm Joanne Gallagher, your Think Future podcast host. Today, we're talking to Valentina Petrone of WSP, who joins the show to tell us about the circular economy approach and the design principles that inform it. Join us in a minute to find out more. This podcast is brought to you by Arcons, a global leader pioneering solutions and services to the AEC and manufacturing industries to support digital transformation for the built environment and smart manufacturing. Visit arcons.net to learn more about how Arcons are helping organizations design, build, and solve through digitalization. From Arcons to you, welcome to our Think Future podcast series. Each week, we'll share conversations with industry leaders from around the world to find out how they're thinking future. Subscribe to Arcons Think Future for access to more episodes, interviews, and profiles. Valentina Petrone is WSPs Circular Economy Lead in Australia and New Zealand. Valentina has unique skills that combine 15 years' experience as an architect together with an in-depth knowledge of the circular economy design principles. She is currently working on pioneering circular economy projects in the design and advisory space, ranging from master planning and urban design, building design and material selection, through to government strategies and roadmaps. Valentina is also the chairperson of the Property Council of Australia's National Working Group on Circular Economy, as well as a member of the Green Building Council of Australia Responsible Product Expert Reference Panel. Welcome to the program, Valentina.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for the invitation.
Valentina, you've been called the circular economy change maker. Can you please tell us how you came to be known as that and a little bit about your career highlights to date?
Sure. So as part of WSP, there is this theme going across the company, looking at passionate people on specific topics, and that's how the Changemaker hashtag came up. And within WSP, I'm definitely one of the most passionate people around circular economy, so that's why I've been called the circular economy Changemaker. And my passion around this topic starts many years ago now, because I'm an architect by background, and I've always been passionate about, through my design, reduce the impact on the environment, and particularly the built environment. And the circular economy concept really resonates with me.
And so your background started in Italy, is that right?
Correct. I was born in Italy and been working in Italy and in Northern Europe for 10 years as an architect and designer. And as I mentioned, my focus was around the solar passive design strategies and energy saving design, and really looking at opportunities to ensure that anything we design has as less impact as possible on the environment. And the way I was approaching my design was to look at energy saving, water saving, and materials and waste also form part of the conversation. And the part also I really like about being an architect and now a consultant is about trying to share what I know through my work and to share my knowledge with others, and trying to promote behavior change and better best practices across the industries and to clients.
It's great that you're involved with, you mentioned water. Water circularity is a big topic at the moment, so maybe you can talk to that a little bit later. So how are you currently using this passion and knowledge in your present role at WSP?
Sure. So at the moment for WSP, I have a role as the Circular Economy Lead, which means that I am the subject matter expert across WSP, across multiple business units, which is a great opportunity for me, because I believe that the circular economy framework can be applied definitely to property and buildings, which is the area of expertise where I come from, but there are opportunities also to apply this framework and approach on other topics and sectors, including infrastructure, mining, transport. So that's the great opportunity that I have within WSP. And I'm not an expert in all fields by all means, but my role is to share the framework and share the approach, and then work together with the design teams, either internally or externally at WSP, and together see how a circular economy approach can be effectively embedded in the design. What I really like is that every project is different. So my days are very different one from another, and every project is different. So we can really work together and think outside the box and trying to embed, as I said, the circular economy approach as much as possible in each project.
So it sounds like you've taken a multidisciplinary approach to circular design, and you're facilitating conversation across the whole construction industry in these different sectors. Is that right?
Correct. So as part of my role, it really depends on what type of project it is. It could be, for example, policy and guidelines project specifically just on circular economy. So it might be just myself and my team working with a client, or might be big multidisciplinary project where, yes, our team is coordinating all disciplines, and based on a shared framework that we share with the team, then we facilitate interactive workshops and we work together to identify opportunities per each layer or component of an asset. So, for example, in terms of policy and guidelines, I had the honor to co-author the New South Wales Circular Design Guidelines for the built environment, which has been an amazing opportunity, working with the Department of Planning and their experts from the New South Wales State Government. And from a project point of view, it's just been released a project we've been working on, which is the Bradfield City Centre here in Sydney, beside the Sydney Aerotropolis. Again, a great innovative project where we were involved from the early start, up to other infrastructure and road projects, waste infrastructure projects, even a desalination plant. So it's really a very, circular economy gives us a great opportunity to be involved on a variety of projects at multiple scales of intervention.
Wow, that's a lot of expertise then over the years you've got between you and your team, it sounds like. So you mentioned a circular design guidance. Is that what I heard? When did that get developed and what's happening with it now?
Yes, so the circular design guidelines for the built environment were released by the New South Wales State Government early last year, February 2023. And the goal of that document is the first across Australia, and it is a first step in providing guidance to the construction industry, but also to policymakers and different stakeholders, including builders, on what is a circular economy approach for the built environment, because a lot of people is now familiar with the key principles of a circular economy, but how to apply those to the built environment, that's another step in terms of expertise. And these guidelines provide a good overview in terms of principles, and then it dives through individual design strategies that can be applied to a variety of developments, including infrastructure, precincts, buildings, and fit out. And then per each strategy, which is defined with a short definition and what's the aim of implementing this strategy into a project. It also includes a good overview of case studies and best practice examples, both in Australia and internationally, where these strategies have been embedded and what are the outcomes.
And where can you find the guideline? Is it on your website or somewhere else?
Yes, the guidelines have been officially published by the state governments. So maybe we can share a link to be able to easily download them. And also on WSP website, we have a nice description on what is the summary and the link. So yeah, a couple of options there.
So you mentioned principles. Can you just name the principles? What are the principles in the guideline?
Sure. So the principles for a circular economy are, the first one is to design out waste from the outset. And in terms of built environment, means to looking at the design opportunities from the early start of a project to minimize any wastages of materials and resources. A second principle is to keep materials in use, and I would say for as long as possible at the highest value, which means if we are disassembling or demolishing an existing asset, and for example, there are some bricks or some tiles available, is there the opportunity to deconstruct them instead of just crashing and reuse those materials as is in a new project? Could be an option. And then the third principle is to return materials to systems. Originally, the circular economy has, as a third principle, is called regenerate natural systems, which is an amazing concept, but I find that for the built environment, if we're talking about bricks and concrete, is a bit hard to make that connection. So thinking how we can return those materials to the system, for example, in terms of take-back schemes or leasing agreements. So again, we are not just crushing materials and throwing into landfill, but we are trying to recycle and reuse them as much as possible through different business models.
And how is the industry receiving the guidelines? Are they well received?
Yeah, so the guidelines have been very well received in New South Wales, but also nationally, because as I mentioned, it was the first type of guidelines across the multiple states. And as part of my role, we have a good relationship with key architects. So we have been sharing those, and it's been very well received from architects, builders, and the whole construction industry stakeholders, because it provides a good introduction and a good starting point for them to build upon. And also there has been interest from local government level, because these guidelines are the state level. So from a local government perspective, there is an interest to understand how this can apply and drive change in the construction industry. And that means it will also improve the quality of development application and submissions to local councils. So yeah, very well received, which is great to hear.
It is good to hear. So in a local government area, let's say you're looking at a building in a precinct, what would you be looking at, say, the life cycle of a building? What stage would you consider the circular economy approach?
That's a very useful question. So whenever we start with designing, whether it is a whole precinct or individual building, the goal is always to start as early as possible. So ideally, the first conversation with the client should already include an acknowledgement of a circular economy approach, which basically means looking at design and an asset having the whole life cycle in mind. So thinking, I might be designing these assets for example, to be used as a car park at the moment, but what happens if in 10 years we need to undertake a refurbishment and a change of use? So an example is when we design a car park, allowing for floor-to-floor heights to be high enough to be easily reconverted into a commercial office, for example, or an apartment building. And those are key questions that if asked very early in the design process, they have a minimal impact in terms of costs and in time, in construction times and design times, but really can provide extra benefit once the asset maybe in 10 years needs to be undertake a change of use and things have already been planned in advance.
And are the clients excited to get involved in these conversations early and hear that they can actually save money if they think and design smart?
Yes. So clients are really interested, and designers and architects as well. The challenge, as you mentioned, is always the risk perception and possible extra cost. And the biggest challenge we see at the moment is that it is still a novel approach in Australia and internationally. Some countries overseas, particularly in Europe, are a bit ahead of us, so they can provide a bit more of case studies and cost assessments to demonstrate benefits, but still there are only limited examples in Australia. So we're still a bit in the phase that clients want to wait to see a fully successful project before making the first jump, but there are stronger requirements coming up from legislation, which is great, and some initiatives, like for example the Green Building Council of Australia propose a circular economy leadership credit, which gives extra credit for assets that are designed in line with circular economy principles. That is also a strong driver. So we are definitely in the past 3-4 years we've seen big improvements in Australia, which is great.
So what kind of questions do you talk to the client with in mind? What are you asking them these first meetings?
Probably rather than questions, it's still quite a bit of storytelling from us, and to bring positive project examples to demonstrate the benefits. And what is always a winning approach is a step-by-step approach. If we start talking about design for disassembly of a complex asset, everybody will get really scared. If we are imagining to fully disassemble, for example, a tall commercial building, it's a bit too much in one go. But what is very useful is applying the building by layers approach, which means looking at an asset by their layers, or construction layers that are typically based on the expected longevity of each element. For example, we know the structure of a building is designed to last up to 100 years, but the facade, which is exposed to the environment and might need a bit of a change of look and feel, that might need more ongoing maintenance and might be redone and upgraded more often. We know, for example, all the furniture and the chairs we sit in the office, they get changed quite a bit. So it is by breaking down by those individual elements and talking with also the different specialists that we can identify the low-hanging fruit, start having the design team thinking in a more circular way, and from by applying baby steps, so we can then build up the momentum. And what I find really encouraging and I'm really passionate about is when we start with a new design team, the beginning everybody's a bit concerned on what's going to happen. They think we might want to change completely the design and start from scratch. But when we make very clear that lots of circular and good initiative of design are already embedded in the project, we are there to help document a good story. And then working with them, the design team come up with a lot of other ideas of things they might have thought they didn't even know could fall under circular economy umbrella. At the end, it's a very positive experience for everybody. And project by project, they get more confidence on this topic and they can develop their design in a more circular way, which I find really good.
That's brilliant. And is there a broader opportunity here, like say, if you can integrate this guideline with other design principles such as biourbanism or permaculture? Have you ever experienced that in a project?
Yes, definitely. The concept behind the circular economy approach can then branch out and lead into other opportunities. I'm very passionate about permaculture, and personally I'm keen to learn a bit more, but that fits perfectly into the third principle of a circular economy, which is about regenerating natural systems and trying to minimize our impact on nature, which is great. There are lots of analogies also with biophilic design as well. So that's why I find this area really interesting, because you can make so many connections on other topics. And at the end of the day, also with climate change and mitigation strategies, at the end of the day, they're all initiatives and opportunities to try to minimize man-made impact on the environment. So really great opportunities.
And what about water circularity? Do you have a case study where you designed in circularity with the built environment when it comes to water as well?
Water is definitely an interesting topic, and particularly in Australia, we know that it needs to be very wise in terms of using water. So we at WSP, we work in collaboration with our sustainability team, and they always recommend as much as possible to try to collect as much as rainwater as possible, to have water efficient fixtures, to reuse any grey water as part of an asset. So there are lots of initiatives that are very well tested and overseas and partially implemented in Australia as well. So that is definitely one of the focus areas. I'm a big fan of green roofs. I think they are really amazing because they not only make sure that we collect rainwater and we use that for irrigation, but they also provide additional thermal insulation to the roof. So that's great as well. And there's been a research that when combined with the PV panels on the roof, basically the vegetation will keep the temperature on the roof a bit lower, and the PV panels can work more efficiently and produce more energy. So again, it's all very intertwined. And what we need to do as designers is to think more holistically, I would say, stop thinking about in silos and collaborate more with all the other disciplines to really look at the project from a whole life cycle point of view and understanding all the synergies.
And it sounds like you collaborate with nature too, because nature has a lot of benefits that we can work together well in harmony with. That's lovely. We're going to take a short break to tell you a little bit more about Archons, and then we'll be right back to the conversation. Archons has a mission to advance the efficiency, quality and profitability of project outcomes for its customers by providing best-in-class technology and services. If you're looking for a digitalization and sustainability-focused partner to help you achieve your goals, join the thousands of AEC and manufacturing customers globally who have turned to our cons to start their journey toward a better built environment and smarter manufacturing. With more than 50 locations around the world, our cons can connect you to the right technologies and expertise so you can improve your competitive position and increase profitability. Our cons has an industry expert to help you navigate the best pathway forward wherever you are on your digitalization and sustainability journey. Visit ourcons.net to find out more. And now back to our conversation. The project you mentioned earlier in Sydney, would you like to tell us a bit more about that and how the guideline has been used in that project?
Yes, I'm really happy that now the Bradfield City Centre master plan has been officially released, so I can talk about the project. So the project is a new precinct beside the Aerotropolis here in Western Sydney. And there has been a great strategic approach from the Western Parkland City Authority, which is the state government authority who is responsible for the design and the development of this new precinct. So our team has been working in collaboration with them to deliver and prepare a waste management and circular economy strategy that could really embed this pioneering strategic approach into the precinct. The goal of the precinct is to become a truly circular city, which is very exciting. And we have used the key principles highlighted in the circular design guidelines as a starting point. Then we have set very pioneering targets in terms of waste generation avoidance, which is very important because at the moment in our industry, we talk about waste diversion from landfill, which is very good, but still is talking about recycling materials rather than just avoid to produce any waste in the first place. So having those pioneering targets is been very, very important. And then as part of the process, identifying also how these targets can be achieved, which initiatives could have been implemented. And what is very exciting of this precinct is also that a dedicated space to a circular economy hub, which is a place where the community can come together and will have opportunity to share resources and have, learn new skills, having a repair cafe, a repair hub, etc. That space has been pre-allocated within the precinct, which is very, very important because we know there is usually a bit of a challenge within design team and disciplines to allocate space. We need for the developments to work, and sometimes the initiatives like the circular economy hub, there is always the risk that they get value engineered out. So the fact that the Western Parkland City Authority was really keen to have that embedded in the strategies and identify space for it to be built, it's a huge success.
And how will you measure the success? Is that when you have zero waste, or do you have what is the target?
So in an ideal world, it will be zero waste. In reality, there will always be some residual waste, some materials that either are contaminated or we can't really remanufacture, reuse, repurpose, or recycle. So there will always be some residual waste. But the target we are proposing as part of the Bradfield City Centre is to reduce the waste generation by 50%, which is amazing. And that applies to both operational waste, which is the waste that will be generated by the users of the precinct once built, which is everybody's scraps from the kitchen and our day-to-day waste that we produce. So really proposing a shift to minimize single-use items, the usual coffee cups, but also polystyrene. If we do ice cream takeaway that comes in a polystyrene container, which at the moment it ends up into landfill, etc. But also looking to minimize through a circular design approach any construction and demolition waste, which means that the assets that will form this precinct will need to be designed to be ideally some components to be disassembled and at the end of their useful life, but also looking at those principles of that we were talking at the beginning, design for flexibility, so how an asset or some internal spaces can be then reconverted in the future for different uses. Or, for example, if you think of an office space that typically is used from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and then is empty, what are the different business models that we can investigate to have, for example, those spaces used after hours for other purposes. So a lots of opportunities to unfold.
And is this precinct going to be fully electric, or how is that working with the design, how it's powered? Do you know anything about that part?
So as part of the strategy coordinated by the Western Parkland City Authority, there were different consultants working on different aspects. So us as WSP were looking at waste and circular economy, and then another consultant was looking at the water design, a third consultant on energy, and then there was a consultant specialized on digital. So I have had limited overlapping with the other consultants, but definitely the tendency we are seeing in Australia is to push for more electrified buildings. So move away from having natural gas, particularly in residential assets and office space.
So, Valentina, what other examples can you share within the built environment?
Sure. So with our team, we've been lucky to be working on a variety of projects, as I mentioned, across multiple type of developments and scale of intervention. Project that we're working right now is our very own WSP Sydney office fit out here in Sydney. And this project has been very interesting because we know fit out waste has a huge impact in terms of waste generated. And we know that typically every 5 years, there is a change of tenancy in for offices. And most of the time, offices are just stripped out to the bare minimum. And then the new tenant will get a completely new fit out, which generates, as I said, a huge amount of waste. And due to the mixed composition of those materials, the quantity of waste sent to landfill is very, very high. So when WSP decided to upgrade our offices here in Sydney, we've been invited to provide circular economy guidance. And it has been very interesting because we are now at the stage of construction phase. So basically we are still in the office, so we can see live how our recommendations can be effectively embedded and see what works and what not. So the plan is to prepare then a detailed case studies and sharing the lesson learned to be shared with the industry.
And do you measure the embodied carbon or the waste in terms of carbon?
Yes, so the process started from early in the design process, liaising with all the different disciplines, and again was very empowering to see colleagues then coming to us to say, "Oh, really? With asking those questions, you made me rethink our approach of what we do on this or that item." So that has been very, very empowering. And now that we are in the construction phase, our goal is to make sure that what we have identified as an opportunity during the design phase is actually be embedded in the process. And yes, we are monitoring and measuring in partnership with the builder on site how much we are saving in terms of furniture reuse within our own fit out, not needed excess furniture that is going to be donated to charities, lighting fixtures that we are going to reuse, lots of desks that we will retain, items like there are building services items like cabling or cable trays that are not visible and usually get a bit lost in the process. So we are trying to really capture as much as possible.
That's really good to hear. The Arden project was mentioned by the World Green Building Council as a very special project, and WSP being part of that. Is that right? You could expand maybe tell us a bit more about the Arden precinct.
Correct. The Arden precinct is within the city of Melbourne, and has been another great project where there was again a stronger commitment from the client. In this case, was City of Melbourne / supported by Development Victoria, looking to develop an innovative, sustainable precinct in the city of Melbourne. Again, similar approach to the Bradfield City Centre, so starting from having a clear conversation with the clients, setting clear targets, and then guiding the design team into defining what are the best circular design initiatives to be implemented. And what's very interesting for this project is that our team is also involved in the next phase, which is more so we started from a strategic point of view, and now we are involved in the concept design from a waste management and circular economy perspective. So really, again, working with the design team and identifying opportunity in terms, for example, of waste management. So the starting point is to avoid waste generation, as we discussed, but then for anything that is still generated, how we ensure the precinct is going to separate the waste streams as much as possible to maximize the recovery, and how the collection system will all work with a strong focus on food organics waste, which is a very important topic at the moment across Australia, because we know that food waste to landfill can contribute to greenhouse gas emissions immensely. So we really need to tackle that.
What would your advice be for architects and designers if they wanted to start in this way for circular economy? What's your thoughts on where to begin?
Probably the advice to designers and architects would be, as I mentioned, to trying to do a bit of a step back and think holistically about the project. Typically, architects would receive a brief from the client, and of course, we want to make the clients happy. But there are opportunities to, particularly now that we are all aware about climate change and all the issues related, an opportunity to apply an holistic approach, which can include a circular economy, a design advice, as we spoke about, more connection to nature, etc. And definitely starting small is a good way to go, looking at where there are opportunities to familiarize more with these principles, and also to take the clients on a journey. Definitely having a look at the circular design guidelines could be a good starting point. There are, then you mentioned the World Building Council Circular Economy, Circular Built Environment Playbook also has a good collection of case studies. Planet Arc website also has a good showcase of different examples. So there are lots of information available, sometimes even too much. So that's why I recommend to start small and see where those principles resonate with you and apply that where you can.
Yes, the Circularity Accelerator Playbook was launched last May, and it is available on the World Green Building Council website if anyone wants to download it and have a read. It's very good. And WSP and Archons were partners, as well as others, in the development of that playbook. What about mind shift? Is there a mind shift needed to begin this journey of circularity?
Yes, the mind shift that needs to happen across all stakeholders is to start thinking about what we now call waste as a material and an opportunity. So unfortunately, and I always use this simple example of the disposable coffee cup, where we go and order a coffee, takeaway coffee, we purchase a product, which is the coffee within the cup, and then once we have drink the coffee, and then after that, the same cup becomes a waste item, which you can just get rid of it. And the fact that we put items in a bin, and then those get collected typically overnight, so we don't see the bins being collected, the waste gets out of our sight, we kind of forget where it goes. So for me, it was a very strong and smelly eye-opener going to see a landfill with my eyes. That was really, really a strong experience, which I really recommend to everybody to do it, because after that, you will really rethink on what you purchase and when things go. And so that is very critical. And again, that applies to the design, because we want to design a product, an asset, a piece of clothing, whatever we use every day that is comfortable, that is nice. Still, we want the product to be appreciated and being sold for the right price. But we have lost a bit the thinking around the whole life cycle. So if I'm designing, I don't know, a pair of shoes, what happens when the shoes then needs, get too old and needs to be either repaired or needs to be thrown away? Can they be some elements being disassembled, reused? And there are some companies that are looking into these aspects, and they're sharing their lesson learned experience, because it is not easy at all. And So that's, I think, across the board, the shift that we all need to do. I think where everything that I own will go.
Wow, must have been an interesting experience. Did you do that in Australia or somewhere else?
I did that when I used to live, when I moved to Australia in Perth, so in Western Australia, and I was part of an organization, and we organized a trip to an open landfill.
It's sobering. So Valentina, I see that you're on the Green Building Council of Australia reference panel for responsible products. How does procurement act as a lever for change in the circular economy?
Yes, it's been a few years that I'm supporting the Green Building Council on this topic, and circular procurement has a great so-called push and pull role in terms of the industry and promoting a more circular approach. Particularly if you look, for example, at the state government and local governments, they have an amazing procurement power to require as part of the tendering process that there are some specific requirements in terms of services, and that will provide an opportunity to companies and suppliers to make the change because they see that this value adds recognized. And we're seeing this happening, and there are incentives from state and local government perspective that are really important. But also another, again, simple example I share usually with the construction industry is about, for example, they have an amazing procurement power if we think about the construction company building a new asset. So asking the right question to their suppliers, for example, starting from packaging. So the construction materials get delivered on site, depending on the type of materials, with some packaging. And typically the packaging is just removed on site and then is sorted into different streams. Best case scenario gets recycled, or otherwise it just gets sent to landfill. So what about if construction industry and builders start asking for different opportunities in terms of those packaging? It could either be they unpack on site and have allocated space for storage, and then this can be taken back by the supplier. And if, again, even the packaging can be designed to be easily disassembled and reused, and it will be a win-win for the builders on site that have less materials and waste to recycle or get rid of. And for the supplier, it means that if properly designed, they could reuse that packaging maybe 2 or 3 times and saving money, but also materials we waste and all the energy and the water used, for example, to produce those packaging materials. So definitely procurement is very important. And even when we look, for example, at the office space, all the items we use in our everyday offices, again, what's the rationale behind that, and can we push for more circular products? So lots of opportunities with that.
Valentina, and I just want to ask you, when you think future about circular economy and the built environment, what is it that excites you the most?
In terms of future, I have a very strong interest in education. In fact, I'm involved, collaborating with a couple of universities in Australia, and I give my time to offer guest lectures to students. And I see in young generation that will be the future designers a lot of interest, and they're really aware about the issues we are facing at the moment. And I'm a strong believer that having a broader holistic approach, which, as we mentioned, includes also circular economy, but is not just limited to that. It might not solve all issues because there are some problems probably that are bigger than us, but definitely can help future generation to have that different mindset and make them aware of their decisions. So I can see now younger generation, I have 2 daughters, and when we go shopping, I can see them looking at the tag, not just for the price, but they're starting to ask the good question and noticing, this material is recycled. So there's much more awareness, which is great. One thing that is very popular in Europe and is starting in Australia as well is the young generation. They're just renting their clothing. So they rent the clothing, and not just for a big night. They might rent a pair of jeans and then give it back and change it. And they are much more agile and flexible than us. That probably my generation would start thinking, oh, no, I don't want to rent the clothes. I don't know, where it comes from, and I want to own my clothes. Now it is all changing. So I'm positive about the future, and hopefully there will be opportunities to really reduce our impact on the environment and be more aware of what we have and treasure what we have.
Well, Valentina, you've given us a lot to think about, and it's so good to know that you're a leading woman in construction and you're encouraging the whole industry to think and to use resources efficiently and wisely and to be smart around intelligent design. So this is great. So thank you for coming on the show to tell us about the guideline and all of your experiences and projects.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for having me.
This podcast was brought to you by Arcons. Arcons is leading the digital transformation of the AEC and manufacturing industries by providing best-in-class technology solutions from world-leading partners and their own in-house development software from the Arcons Be Smart portfolio for building, infrastructure and manufacturing. Arcons is a company that cares about creating and building a better world. Together, we are working with industry and environmental experts, providing forums and platforms through our Arcons Think community to create conversations that matter to our future generations. We invite you to join in the conversation and participate in our Think community. Like and subscribe to Think Future to stay up to date with the latest innovations and conversations as we advance the digital journey for the AEC and manufacturing around the world. You can download our podcasts at arcons.net or from your favorite podcast platform.